The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Retail Pro V9 webinar. Our goal here today is to go through the basics of the Retail Pro reports that come with your version 9 system. And then we're also going to branch out a little bit into dealing with Crystal reports, which is the only way that you can essentially edit the reports. And we will talk a little bit about running report groups and scheduling. So that will be towards the end of the period, right? And so if you have questions, use the little raise your hand tab. I'll try to keep an eye on that and answer your questions. Might have to keep everybody on mute, but if it works out so that I can have the question recorded, we'll try to do that as well. All right, so first off, right, your Retail Pro reports are outside, right, generally on your desktop of your Retail Pro 9. Some people lately, we've been putting a button on the sidebar menu of your Retail Pro main menu that gets you into reports. So if you have that and familiar with that, that is an alternative way of getting in there. We're pretty much only doing that with newer clients or people that came from version 8 and were used to having their report viewer embedded in their Retail Pro. Okay, so if that's something that you're interested in, one of the techs here can help you set up there's a file called usermenu.ini where you can actually create your own link to a separate executable program. All right, so to launch Retail Pro reports, basically you double click on this icon. It's Retail Pro user driven, right? So I've already got mine logged in, so we don't have to wait for that to launch. What we do first of all is talk about the initial setup of the reports module. So here under options, okay, there's a couple of things that you care about the first time you go in that you set. Right, so in WS preferences here, okay, there is a couple of things that you set and basically forget about after you've set them up initially unless something changes. One thing that you need to know about the preferences that you put in here, these apply to all of the workstations that run Retail Pro reports in your local group, right? So if you have a server, okay, and you have workstation 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all connected to the same database on the server, then they're using the same workstation preferences. Even though they're called workstation preferences, they persist across your local group of computers. All right, so we'll start up in the top here in the setup. There's not really anything for you to do /change, right? This is how the executable logs into the database. Okay. In appearance, there will be one thing that you'll want to change. By default, it comes out of the box like this, okay? And this is the, when you run a report, you filter for certain criteria, and if you want those displayed at the top of the report, right, then you need to change this to first page, right? Most people put it on the first page. You can put it on the last page. I've seen that done, and if that makes sense to you, you're perfectly welcome to do that. One of the things that we recommend is do one or the other, because if you do none and you run a report for a date range, there's no way for you to tell what date range you ran that thing for, okay, without having the filter criteria displayed on either the first page or the last page of the report. All right, so you want to set that. Okay, in the printing preference section, there's a couple of things. First of all, down here where it says allow change at time of printing, right? For whatever reason, the print range isn't checked when it comes out of the box. So you want to check that in case you want to print just the first page or the last page. You need that in order to be able to do that. Okay, the rest of the information up here, right? Pretty self-explanatory. What printer am I defaulting to? Okay, so this sees the Windows printers. You pick what you want to default to. Okay, and like I said, when I started in here, this should persist across your workstations for a local group, right? So if you have a printer that is reachable or configured in Windows for all the workstations, that would be the suggested default printer. Not that you couldn't choose and send a report to a different printer, but this system works the best if you have a single printer that's in Windows, in the Windows spooler for all your workstations that run these reports. It simplifies things when you go to format and pull the driver. All right, so with those things set up, okay, you're ready to run reports. Right, so over on the left-hand side here, you see a reports icon. If you click on that, okay, that's going to get into a menu structure, right? So the first thing that we talk about here is menu structure. What's in there, right? So the Retail Pro comes with these audit reports, the journals, the list, the merchandise, and the summary. On my system here, I've got a custom directory and I've got an other directory, and we'll talk about those after we kind of define what's in the out-of-the-box Retail Pro type of reports. First, this is something that we talk about. It's not used very often, but it's not accounting audit. It is like system audit. You can set flags on certain permissions in your permission group, and this is a way to audit how long they've been, or who's used them and when, right? So they're basically logs. User account log is, logging in, logging out type of thing. I'm not sure I can even produce anything in year to date. Let's just check. Okay, year to date. Yeah, I don't have any data in my year to date, but these can be set up so that you can have the data to know when people have logged in and if they've used override permissions with this one, et cetera, right? So if you're interested in getting more detail about that, we can deal with that offline, an email, or talk to one of the trainers here to get some specifics on what those actually do. Most people will use the journals, the list, the merchandise, and the summary, right, to some extent. Okay, I'm going to start with the easy one first. That's list, right? So the list reports, again, this is out of the box from Retail Pro. The list reports are reports that list certain things, right? So let me get that list over here. So customer addresses, customer postal codes, all the departments, all the employees. So pretty boring, right? A list of vendors. The only ones that are kind of unique, right, are these lists of the Centrals databases, right? So Centrals is a feature in Retail Pro where you have a little database that sits on the side where you can store gift certificate activity and track the balance, store gift card activity and track the balance. So this is a Retail Pro onboard utility, right? This is not buying a gift card from an outside source and having that outside source maintain the balance. And you have like your Cayenne if you are using that, or any kind of stored value card or anything like that. These are internal databases, and we have the ability to report, right, on that activity here, or get a list of the balances, which can be really handy in some cases. So those are a little unique. The customer loyalty balances, if you're using Retail Pro's onboard loyalty, this is a little unique in the later versions of Retail Pro. But for the most part in lists, right, a customer address list, right? If I run a customer address list here, I get whatever fields are were stuck on the report. In this case, it's pretty boring and looks like pretty not very useful. Okay, one of the reasons that we don't spend a lot of time on lists, okay, is that if you needed this information and you needed it printed or exported into Excel, right? It's easier to do this from Retail Pro proper than it is to run a report and then access it. If you just need a straight printout, maybe this is the easiest, but you know, in general, the lists are not used all that much. Okay, and in the cases where we have a like the store credit and last sale date, this is probably the one that I have people use the most, right? So show me anybody who's got a store credit of any amount and when their last sale date was. You can get that information just by filtering the list view in Retail Pro proper. Okay, so it depends on, you know, whether you need a printout or what, right? Whether these are useful at all for your application. So we don't spend a lot of time on them. And then the next, you know, the next chunk up, right, of Retail Pro reports is under journals. Journals are lists of documents, right? So a list of PO documents, a list of vouchers, a list of sales, a list of sales orders, list of transfers. So they're lists of document transactions, okay, in some way, shape, or form. We don't, you know, we have a lot of these versions that people use right out of the box, and then we have some that we have customized, which I will be showing you. But remember, a journal is a list of transactions, right? It's not a list of what you have on hand in inventory, because that's not a transaction. That's a record. It's not a list of customers and you know, what their you know, monthly activity is or year-to-date activity or anything like that, because that's not a document. That's a record. Okay, so lists of documents in, you know, several different types of documents in several different ways, with detail, without detail. So usually like this, the PO journal with detail is going to give you item, 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 right? The one, the PO journal without item detail, is going to give you one line per PO, generally speaking. Same with voucher journals. You got a no detail version and a detail version. Okay, and so those are the ones that you will find that come out of the box in Retail Pro. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to show you examples of these in our modified directories, right? So I don't want to spend a lot of time running examples. You can run these examples. We are going to run an example or two, so I show you how to run it with the filter and what's up with that. But for now, I just want to explain the differences, why there are different directories, okay, and what you can find in general in each directory. All right, so after journals, the next one up is the summary, right? And this is a huge section of stuff, right? And that's because this is where most of the, you know, looking at the data in your system takes place. A summary report is a summary of one data element only, right? So if you look at these, I've got, you know, sales summary. So these are going to show you just sales, right? This item summary is a sales item summary. When I have something up here, right, that's like inventory, right? So here with a summary report, I can show you inventory on hand, right? Because I'm not just reading transactions, I'm reading records or transactions. Some of these things are actually reading the documents, like sales, right? All the sales happen on a document, so I have to read all the documents and summarize what happened on that document by department or vendor or associate or item or customer, or, you know, whatever's in the title here generally tells you what the level of detail is, right? So if it says item summary in the title, guess what? You're going to get item, 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 item. Okay. If it says monthly summary in the title, you're not going to get an item detail. Right now, I like to show people this because A, it runs really fast, and I don't have to, you know, keep talking while it does. But what this actually does, okay, is summarize by month, right? And I think to get anything, I have to probably go to this, right? So we'll just go to this, okay, and I'll show you what's here, right? So monthly summary, one line per month. Okay, and if I were to run this for a 3-year time frame, all the Februaries are going to end up in the same month, okay, or on the same line. That's a summary report, unless we change it. While I'm on this report, a lot of the Retail Pro stock reports come with pretty graphs, pie charts, graphs, et cetera, right? Unlike some older versions of Retail Pro that you might be useful, lots of penetration type things that we can do, it's just a completely different world, which is why we like to get really excited about V9 reports, because you're collecting all the data, and what can you do with it? How can you have these reports help and run your business? So now that we're in our report, right, I can show you a little bit about it's not a multi-page, so I need to get a multi-page report. Let me just pick something else here. Item summary. Okay, that one's pretty ugly, but we're just going to do it anyway, right? So let's do last year to date again. Okay. All right, so when you run a report, right, it pops up a filter. You answer the questions on the filter. We'll go back and kind of look at that a little bit. Okay, but once you get the report up, you have your pagers appear, right? Next page, last page, the blue arrows up here at the top, right? So it helps you page through, an indicator of what page you're on. Zooming works differently here than it does in like your Doc Designer or your previews in actual Retail Pro. So you can't hit the plus key, right, in this backdrop, because this is up in Crystal Reports Reader, okay? And so we're bound by the way they do things. It's not a Retail Pro product, basically. Retail Pro is chosen in version 9 to provide a base level set of reports for you. They are written in Crystal Reports. If you want to change anything about the way the report looks, the way it's sorted, the way it subtotals, any of that, you need Crystal Reports Writer, okay, which is a third-party industry standard piece of software that you can buy and we can train you on. We will be looking at that a little bit later, okay, but you can't change anything about what is displayed and in what order, right, unless you have Crystal Reports, okay. So your choices up here, right, on the icons here, we're just going to cover briefly, right. So you can print this report, right, and it'll give you a chance to change your default printer, print a number of pages, etc. I'm just cancel that. I don't want to send that to the printer. You can export this report to any of these formats, right, providing you have Excel installed on this computer or have access to it in some way, shape, or form, i.e. online, okay. And you can export it into Word or PDF. Most commonly, we're exporting to an Excel flavor. If you do text only, okay, then that is going to leave all this fancy formatting behind. Okay, so if you're going to use the data, that's what you want to do, right? Text only. I didn't actually check to make sure that this was going to function here. All right, somebody's got their hand up. Hang on a sec. Okay. Oh, Brad has his hand up. No, Brad doesn't have his hand up. So if you had a question, Brad, put your hand up again, or there's a chat, right? You could drop into the chat and I'll look for it. All right, so this is an example of what the report looks like pulled into Excel, right? So if you have an overflow like you see here, right, you can just pull this out, that data's there. It's just squished because of your default column width in Excel, right? So you should be able to pull any of these reports into Excel. If you're going to do something with the data, leave the formatting behind, do text only. Okay, you can pull it into a Word document, right? If you want to keep it in that form. Okay, most of the time people will pull this into PDF, right? So I see a question. Okay, I've got a question here. Is there a way to export into Excel in a flat file format that is easier to manipulate with pivot tables. So it exports into as an Excel, right? And to my knowledge, you would have to probably change it to a CSV or do something like that if you needed a simpler layout, right? He's also asking about transitioning data into databases such as SQL Server or Tableau. There isn't anything that's native that does this. I will tell you that the Crystal, right, accesses the SQL data with a package, right, and from that you might be able to figure out how to pull data either directly out of the database into Tableau or into SQL Server. So I'm not sure, Brad, that answers your question, but we can definitely cover that offline if we need to, if that's what you're interested in. So the reports were basically designed as a way to export data or be able to save a PDF or something like that, and kind of designed around that as opposed to trying to export or grab data directly from the database and get it somewhere. Okay. All right. So PDFs, right? A lot of people will do this because once they get it into a PDF, right, they can email it. Okay, it seems my PDF doesn't want to play nice with me. Hang on a sec. Okay, something's going on down here. All right, it's trying to do some stuff with my PDFer here. So most people will export this into PDF, and you can set your PDF so that you can email it directly out of PDF. You could save it to your desktop. So it's an additional way of getting a report, right, that you can save, transport, give to other people, or whatever, right? So exporting. Saving, right, is saving this as an RPT, right, which is a Crystal document. And if you do that, the only way you can open it is with Crystal Reports Reader, okay, which if that's what you're after, you can absolutely do, okay. Refreshing goes out and grabs new data, right? So this is a document. I went out and took a snapshot of the data, and if I had it open, right, and I knew like things were polling or whatever, right, or I'd gone into Retail Pro and I changed something, you hit refresh, it's going to go out and re-grab the data, okay. Finder, this is really handy if you're looking for an ALU or a string, right, in your data. Right, so it will go through and find next. Particularly helpful if you're looking for an ALU or a UPC, right? Because those numbers all blend together if you ask me, right? And then, of course, there's then close, right? Gets you out, okay, of the report in general back to here. All right, so I kind of like ran over the whole filter thing when you run, right? So if you select an item here, right, or select a report here and you hit run, okay, you get this filter. These filters, right, are fixed in the Crystal report. So unlike your version 9 filters that are on the side, there is no add anything to this, right? So there's no page, right, to edit the elements in it. You're stuck with what you got, right? That the report report creator put in here. Okay, you go in and fill in whatever you're going to run on demand for this report. Okay, and as you can see here, it saved the last run, right? From what I did. Okay, and there's also a last run button. This is a relatively new thing in 9, where if I go off of this one and then back to this one and I hit the last run, so that was the run I ran before, right? If I hit the last run button, it's going to execute the last saved filter for that thing and come up and display that information, right? So I had last year to date in there, and until I run that report for different parameters, that's last run. So I can keep going, hitting that button, and keep getting the same info over and over and over again. All right. The other things that are important to know about at this stage, right, are, let's see, well, let's talk about that when I get to custom. Yeah. Okay, so summary reports. Summaries of one data element. So sales in lots of different ways, because that's all why we're here, right, to sell stuff. And we need to look at our sales either by associate or customer, or by month, or by item, or by style, or by vendor, or by department. So everything that's in here, right, the title tells you what level of granularity you have and what we're actually analyzing in here. But those are all sales. Right. So if I look at up here, I've got a handful of reports that show purchase orders, right? So this is a purchase order summary. So show me, what I have open by vendor, right? Or what I have open by department. Okay, it's a summary report. Okay, the on-hand report's just going to show you on hand at whatever, level of granularity that you're looking at, right? Not much else. Like there's a couple of receiving reports in here, but generally a receiving report is an accounting thing where you're looking at it as a journal, right? Because you want to match it to how you're paying the bills or whatever. So not too many summary reports for receiving, but there are a couple. Most of these are sales, as you can see, a handful of transfers down here at the bottom. Okay, and there are a few things in here that didn't exist in older versions of Retail Pro, and you can explore anything in here that you think might be interesting. We like to spend the bulk of our time, talking about what your capabilities are in custom reporting or Crystal or other things like that, things that you do have control over. So by all means, explore these. Okay. The other thing that I hadn't mentioned yet is that if you have let's say you've got something like this, right, associate commission summary, you may not want just anybody, okay, running that report. Okay, so out of the box, the reports all have sysadmin level access, right? So you can see that right there. That one has not been changed. Right, and so there are 5 levels, sysadmin 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you have some reports that you want some people to see, but not all the people, right, then you set, I'm going to click the edit button up here, you set the access level, okay, for whatever the level is that you want them to be able to see. Okay, 4 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. Okay, and now if I change that and I log in, and I have the rights to see a level 4 report, I'm only going to see the ones that are set to level 4. Okay, so I edited that, I just changed that, I saved it, right, and I could log in as a lower level employee, and if I have rights to level 4 reports, I will see that one. If I don't have rights to level 4 reports, I won't see that at all. So you can see most of these, right, that come out of the box are all sysadmin, right, so if you have sysadmin level permission for reports, you will see those. Okay, if you don't, you only see the ones that we want you to see. Okay, so skipping past summary and going to merchandise reports. Merchandise reports can show you more than one data element or more than one date range. So the ones that come with Retail Pro out of the box, a couple of different flavors of those. The most popular are these on-hand sales reports. Okay, so they were designed to show me what I've sold in the last 90 days. Show me what I sold yesterday. And oh, by the way, tell me how much I have on hand right now. Right, so look at, two data elements and make a decision, right, based on some data that makes sense, right, for whatever time frame. These come in a couple flavors, so there's an item version and a style version. Okay, there is also in here things that are 2 date ranges, right? So this sales has 2 date ranges at the level of department, and while I'm at it, I just want to point out that this last 7 days here, this is only the default, okay, for this particular report. So if I go into the filter, so I've click run and go into the filter down here, you'll see the 2 date ranges, right? So they're labeled last 7 days and they're defaulted to last 7 days. Doesn't mean you have to stick with that, right? So you can say, change this date range on the fly, right? So fixed period, I'm going to change this to, let's see, last 7 days this year. I'm going to change that to year to date, okay? And I'm going to change this to last year to date, right? So last year to date. So I'm going to use my dynamic date ranges because that's just the most convenient when we're doing this, right? And so if I just change that for this run, right, it's going to be last year to date versus this year to date. And so what we've got here, this is a stock report again. We got some cute little graphs at the top, right? I've got this year quantity, last year quantity. Interesting, same, but some of them are different, right? This year price, last year price, margin amounts, this year, last year, a little bit of cutoff. That's a problem with my print driver. Okay. Anyway, so this, this is typical of what a this year, last year report looks like from Retail Pro out of the box. Just because it says 7 days in the title doesn't mean you're stuck with that. Okay, you can change this on the fly as you go. Okay, the other thing that you have at your disposal, okay, which we haven't talked about yet, is to change the default filter. Right, so right as of now, we've just been looking at reports over here on the left, right, and then down here you can see this bar where it says reports. Okay, there's right below it is a filters, right? So if I click on filters with that 7 days highlighted, okay, these are all the elements that are in my filter. Okay, if I go to criteria, okay, here I can see where that default is set, right? So that if I change this to this year, last year, if I felt like it, okay, this permanently changes the way this defaults. Okay, so I could do that, right? That's one of the things that that you do have the ability to do. Change what your default filter is for this report, save it. Okay, you could, okay, even in the reports area itself, right? Some of the things, I'm not sure we can edit this, but let's we'll give it a shot here. So this is the one I changed. Right, and so let's see if I can, yeah, you can do this. Okay, so I am highlighted on the last 7 days. It won't let me change the title of reports that are the canned reports from Retail Pro. Okay, but I could potentially change this, right? So I can just change this, hopefully. Hello? Maybe not. Maybe it's just lying to me. All right, in the custom reports, you can do this, change the labels in here, but evidently they blocked that out in the canned reports. So it looks like the only thing you can edit is the actual permission group or access level. All right, so we'll cancel out of that. We'll go do that when we get up to our custom reports. You could change the default filters, however. So if you want to set it so that it always runs for a particular group of stores or a particular date range or any of those other things that you want it to default to all the time, doesn't mean that you couldn't change it when you run it, right? So you can change it here. Okay, you can see it's defaulting. Oh, no, I must have grabbed the wrong one. Hang on. 7 days by subsidiary. Did I do this one? So I changed this one that was this year, last year by subsidiary, right? So this one is defaulting to last year to date, but if on this run, I don't want it that way. And actually, I have them backwards. Okay, you can change this to months and months ago. Whatever, float your boat on this. It's not going to change the default filter. Okay, so 1 month starting 2 months ago, right? So now I've got a month-to-month comparison on here instead of year-to-date. Okay, so you can change those on the fly. Doesn't do anything to the default filters. Change the default filters. You can still change them on the fly if you need to without running without editing the actual filters. Okay, so that's the merchandise section. There are some fancy reports up here. These DT reports, on hand, sold, received. These come with Retail Pro out of the box. They're a grid style or a crosstab report, which if you're used to those and you want to work with them, you can absolutely do that. We try to duplicate this function up in our custom reports, which I'm going to show you because we find it a little bit easier to understand. A crosstab report can tend to be confusing to read, right? And it's hard to export as well. So merchandise reports, multiple data elements, multiple date ranges. These are the ones that come with Retail Pro. Okay, and then the other directories that we have, custom and other. These are reports that we have taken either the summary, didn't have description 2, or the customer one wasn't sorted in the right way, or we needed to do something different to it. So over the years, as we have implemented V9 with people, we find there's some common things that everybody wants in a report, and it didn't exist in the Retail Pro stock selection, right? So we create that, and we make it available to you when you buy version 9 or upgrade from V8, right? And that's what we're looking at right now, right? So just so you know, this is this exclamation point convention. If any of you have been with us for a while, you know that's our trick to make the report sort to the top, right? So if you put a non-alphanumeric character at the top, that sorts first when we're sorting in alphabetical order. So all the ones that start with BHD, right, those are all our stock reports. And so we have BHD adjustment, BHD DT, that means data type, multiple data type. On hand, so we try to tell you this is a BHD clone report, the Gary Dodd clone report. And then what kind of report is it? It's a sales report, it's a receiving report, it's an on-hand report, multiple data types for the DTs up here, okay, and then some specialized stuff that kind of doesn't fit into sales or whatever, right? So, and I've got some extra stuff in here because this is my test machine. So you'll see besides the custom reports that we provide, other versions here that we're testing, right? And if you see anything here that looks like, oh, hey, I probably need that, let us know. Get in touch with us. Tell us, what you need, because if we've done it once already, it's pretty easy to drop it in and pretty cost effective to drop it in for anyone. Okay. If we're developing something from scratch, that's a little more expensive time-wise. But anything that we've developed from that we've modified or had written, where it has a universal appeal, right? We try to provide that for everybody, so you can stand on the shoulders of the people that came behind you, right? And in turn, somebody might be standing on your shoulders when it comes down to it. All right, so we're not going to run all these reports. I just wanted to give you a flavor for what's in here, talk about the other stuff that you have at your disposal when dealing with reports, right? So all of these are reports that have been developed and again, we use the convention, if the word item is in the report, then you get it at the item level, right? If the word, if it's this, right, on-hand and sales by vendor, okay, if the word item's not in there, you're not going to get item level, right? What you're going to get here is on-hand and sales by vendor at the summary level, right? So if I run this little dude wide open, I have a small database, so it shouldn't take too long, okay? What this is going to show you, okay, is I don't have very many vendors, okay, but show you on hand right now, okay, sales for the time frame. Interesting. So I have more sales than that in this database. Somebody's probably been cleaning out my database. But you get the drift, right? You get that summary level. Okay. And so if I'm running this by ID, right, that's the department level. That's the only thing you get. There's a sales by department only, right? Because we actually stuck the word only on there, just so everybody knows it's department only, like that, right? So sales by department only, okay, you're going to get the department level, right? And so if I say I got sales in this, right, I might have had a filter on in the other one, and that was why I didn't get my data. Let's see. Oh, liar, liar, pants on fire. That has DCS. Somebody opened up DCS in this. All right, anyway, that one should be just departments. So somebody's like swapped that out on me. Anyway, all these reports, they run the same way, right? And in the custom directory, we have more flexibility to do things like change the name, right? So if I go here, I'm going to change this because I just opened this and it's department, like department class or DCS, right? So I can change the name of this. I can put an exclamation in the front so that it goes up to the top. I can take the BHD sales part off of this. Okay, I can do all that with the custom reports. I can change the level like I did in the other one. Okay, I can also change the labels on the filters, right? So this is really important, or becomes really important when you got multiple date ranges, right? And it'll say date 1, date 2, date 3. So we would want to change it so that you say this is this year, or this is last 90 days, this is next last 90 days, blah, 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 right? The other thing with the UDFs, right? If you use UDFs, right, and this UDF is your season, instead of having it show you, okay, that this is UDF 3, and you have a whole list of you know, UDF 4, 5, 6, whatever, right? If you're using those, you can change the labels here, right? So when you run the report, right, that's what you see in the filter, right? So I'm going to save this, okay, and then I renamed it, and it's going to float to the top after I rename this. Okay, so here's the report. I renamed it, took the BHD sales off of, I changed this, right? And when I run this now, okay, my UDFs, right? So this is UDF 3 and this is UDF 4. And now I've got a label on it that means something to somebody in English, and they don't have to know which of their UDFs is what. Okay, so that's a thing that we have available on custom reports, not so much on the Retail Pro Canned reports. Okay, now on the Retail Pro Canned reports, if there is one there, right, that you like and you want to make a copy of it, okay, and put it in the other directory or the custom directory or something like that, that is something that you can do. I'm going to demonstrate that briefly with something that's, you know, short and sweet and easy to register. Okay, just so you can get a flavor for what you have capability of doing. Okay, so let's go back to the summary section. Okay, so this, right, this shift report right here, right? So no, let's pick a shorter one. Sorry. Let's see, what is shorter? Not that one. One of these is like really, really short. I can't remember which one it is. That one's pretty short. No. No. That's a pretty good one. All right, so this is a report, right, called the Cashier Performance Report. This is a stock report from Retail Pro. And up in the top part here, if I look, I can see here's the title, here's the directory that it's in, right, and here's the name of the report, RPT_S30_cashier performance, blah, 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 right? So if I wanted to make a copy of that report and register it, and put it in a different directory, I call it something different, I can absolutely do that, okay? So we usually demonstrate that here, right? And it's being recorded, so if you miss it, right, you know, go through the recording, fast forward through the boring parts, get to this part, and watch. And I'll show you exactly what you need to do. So you need to know where it is, right? You need to know what it's called. Okay, so if I open up my File Explorer here, so I'm in the Retail Pro 9 directory on the R drive. Okay, go drill down into Reports. Okay, and I drill down into Summary, right? So here's all the RPTs. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's even more in the custom directory. But if I find this, okay, I can make a copy of this, right? So I'm going to do it the easy way, right? I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it in a different directory, so I don't have to mess with the name. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the custom directory. Okay, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, paste. Okay. All right, and then after I get it pasted, just for my, you know, to know that I modified this, I'm going to change the name in some way. All right, so you want to do this before you register it. So you can just say copy or BHD or your initials or whatever you want to do, right? But it is wise to make it a different name, okay? Because if somebody, you know, if you get an update or something like that to the original one, you may not know what you've done to the copy. It's just a good practice, right? So make it a copy, change the name somehow. So this is in the reports custom directory. So now in my reports executable, right, what we're doing here is called registering a report, right? So if you have a new report that we create for you and give to you, or you want to make a copy, okay, in order for it to show up in your menu, you have to do what's called register the report. Okay, so if I click on register the report, right, you get this, right, and it asks you, okay, what are we going to name this report? So I'm just going to pick something. Okay, I don't want it in the summary directory. I want it in the custom directory. Okay, and you could put it anywhere you want, right? I'm just choosing to put it in the custom directory for consistency. Okay, and okay, I have my copy in the custom directory. So I guess I need to sort it this way, right? So copy, it's all the way down the bottom. Copy, copy, copy. Right, so here's the copy that I made. So I access the copy, okay, and what that does is fill in this middle section where you're going to tell the system store number, right? So if if lookup is in this middle column, right, that means that we have to tell the crystal what field to look in, right, to find that data. If it's a date range, right, it already knows it's a date range. It's going to prompt for a date range. Okay. If this is a numeric range, then it's going to say workstation ... to ... right? So it knows how to format these, and/or it knows how to format. If you're familiar with and/or from your filters in Retail Pro, it knows how to deal with that. Where it's actually going to go out and look a field up in a file, right? That's where lookup is here, right? And you have to tell it where to get that information, right? So most of these are reasonably easy to, intuit what goes here. What I'm doing here, this one is not, because you have to know that I'm going to get the cashier out of employee names. Okay, so if you are copying a file, it is wise maybe to take a snapshot of this area on the original, right? So you know how to answer these questions when you go to register it. Okay, so you're not stuck. Okay, with not having. Okay, so a region. So this can be very tedious. The good news is, if you're multi-store, right, you register it once, okay, on a machine, and you can export, which is the thing that we're going to do next. This is stations. That's workstation. This is tender types. This is fee, and this is active, right? Okay, so you get all the lookups defined. You click the Save button, okay, and it integrates itself into the database, basically all these lookups into the database, and you're ready to run this report. Right, and so my question went away. I don't want to register another one. No, so I'm ready to run this report. Okay, it's a copy, right? It's in the custom directory. It's got that title on it. It has its own set of filters, right? So if I wanted to make my default filters a month to date or whatever I want to do, I can do that in here. Okay, oops, that's wrong. Short date, right? So I'm going to say, let's just make this month to date, right? So if I set my filter to default, right, that gets me a report that's ready to go, right? So back to reports. All right, so here's my report. I re-registered that, and I'm ready to run it. Okay, now we talk a little bit at this stage about what happens when you're multi-store, okay, and you need to get this exported, right, sent to the store, okay, and imported, okay. So, and this is, there's lots of ins and outs in this, so we cover this so you know it's possible, right, and if you need further training on getting this part solidified for your particular installation, then you should talk about it with a trainer. Okay, but in general, once you've registered a report, okay, into the database on a computer, right, and you have remotes, right, so you have a store with a separate database, and you need them to run this report. Okay, this is a new report. Right, when we install reports or remotes, we install all these reports on it unless you tell us not to. And then if they need to be protected, you change the access level, so not everybody can get into them. But in general, your stock reports for Retail Pro are going to be on every remote that we set up. Right, the custom reports, all these BHD, sales, etc., those are going to be on there and available. But now if we're adding reports or you're making copies, right, that you need to copy out, right, this is what you need to do to do that, right? So you've got this report, okay, you want to export it, right? So you can do this one at a time, right, or you can mark a bunch of them and then export them all at one time, okay? But let me just show you the process and where it goes. Okay, so export a report. It's going to export this with however you have the filters set. That's a choice. Generally, the choice is yeah, because I have a date range in there. The only exception is going to be if you need to set store by store. That's a little trickier, but you have your choice. Export with the way the filters are set now, yes. Okay, so what that does is create a copy of the report, okay, in this directory, export, right? So we're on the local drive, Retail Pro 9, okay, in the export directory, okay, there's going to be an out directory, right? And so here, right, I'm sorting this so I can show you date modified because there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Here's a copy of the encrypt file, which is the instruction set. Okay, and I'm actually should have a copy of the file too here. So here's my instruction set, and here's the file. So in the export directory, there's a copy of the file and a copy of the instruction set that can import that into a reports executable at the remote store. So in general, right, you can tell the system, export this and let it sit there, right, waiting, right. You can build a move list in your polling, right, which we're not going to cover today, but you can build a move list in your polling to get this sent out, right. Then there is an install script if you have multiple to install, and I'll just show you that briefly. We don't really get that deep into this, but I just want you to know that you could do it one at a time, or you can use a script. That's not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. Core reports, PCK, right? So up one, this, right? So I'm just going to open this really quick and show you what the install command that looks like. So if you, and this is how we install our core reports, we have like, 60, 70 reports, right? Do we go one at a time and say import, 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 import? No, we don't. Okay, so we put all of those exported encrypt files, right, and the RPTs that go with them in a directory here, right, copy the files to the root install drive, and then we run this, depending on what your drive letter is for where your Retail Pro is installed, we run this on the command line, okay, and that imports everything in the import directory that you copied there, right? So there is a way to import a bunch of them at one time, okay? First step is you got to register them, okay, in here, and then get them exported, okay? And so we talk about that so you know that's possible. We do not expect that you go to every remote, right, and go through the registration process manually like I just did here. Okay. Importing one at a time, if you just have one to do and you want to do it manually, there's an import icon, right? You point it wherever the file is, right? So this one I'm just going to import over the top of this one. So you find the encrypt file. It's only going to show you the encrypt files if you're in import. Okay, and this one, I re-imported that over the top. And since it was all the same, different, no default change in default filters, it didn't whine at me or do anything, right? So basically, that you could use to add that report to your list. Okay. All right, so let me think if there's one other thing before we move on to a different subject, right? So we talked about registering. If you have, all these core reports and you don't want them there, right, you can unregister them. Okay, so I'm going to unregister this test file. Not exactly sure why I did that. But if you have a bunch of stuff in there you're never going to use, if you don't use commission, right? Our reports have a handful of commission ones, and you just want them gone, right? That is unregister, right? So highlight it, click the unregister button over here on the side. Okay, and it'll unregister it and tell you when it's done. Okay, and we do have people ask us, can I unregister all these Retail Pro reports? Yeah, you can, but when we do a maintenance pack, they're going to come back. Okay, so that can be a little frustrating if you took a lot of time to get rid of half of the summer reports in here, and then we do a maintenance pack and they're all back again, right? So if there are things that you only want to see, then change the access level on it and give yourself that access level, and basically it'll hide the rest of it from you. If that really bothers you, that's a better effort than trying to unregister things, especially in the Retail Pro stock area. Okay, I just wanted to, before we go on to grouping and scheduling and crystalling and all that, right? We always have new things that we're adding to the core reports. We go through it all the time. So if you haven't checked with us in a year or so about what's new, right? It's, there's never a bad time to do that, right? We just came out with these BHD adjustment summer reports for PI, right? And those have been very popular. We have some trending reports. Those are a couple of years old, but we're always working on something new. And right, we take nominations from the floor. And if you want something specifically developed for you, we can absolutely do that. It usually comes with a price tag, but if enough people ask for the same thing, maybe it's we develop it and we pass it out, and we don't have to monetize it by charging specifically, or you can share the expense or whatever, right? So anyway, so these reports, right, comes with Retail Pro, comes with the big hairy dog, because we've spent so much time developing them. We want to have everybody to use them. We talked about default filters. Now, beyond that, right, I have this report. Let's see, I use this one as an example all the time. Here, right, item summary with description 2, right? So this was originally a stock report from Retail Pro. It's called their S8 report, okay? And they put it out with just description 1, right? Half of our people use description 1 as their style. The other half use it as their English description and use description 2 as their style. So almost everybody was asking for, I need an item summary with description 2, right? So what we did was we took, okay, this summary report, this S8 summary report, where is it? Item summary, this one right here. We took this one, we opened that up in Crystal, okay, and we modified it and renamed it. Okay, so that's how we got from that, which I ran for you a second ago, right? So you see what this looks like. Okay, so it has, I think if I remember, some fancy graph. Has these fields on it. It's, according to most of our clients, in an inconvenient order. Okay, and I think this one was in like item SID order or something like that, which makes no sense to a human being, right? And it doesn't have description 2, and most people were asking for that, right? So you know what this looks like, right? So we took that, we opened it up in Crystal, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Crystal. I've already got it loaded. Okay, and I'm going to open, okay, the one that is the, let's see, local, the one that we were looking at just then, okay, is this PSDS8. Okay, so I need to know what the name of the file is. S8 department summary, it's item summary, it's this one with D2, right? All right, so we opened that other version up in Crystal, okay, and we changed a few things, right? So in this part of this, what we do is we show you what is easy to change in Crystal, right? Because, this is a third-party software, like I said, we can sell it, you can buy your own. We can get you started in training in here, okay? And when I say get you started, because we have a lot of people who we get them started and they go nuts. And then we have a lot of people who just do the basics. And our goal today is to show you what we think we can train the average user to do in Crystal, okay? So first of all, you've got a workspace here, right, you have, and to Brad's question about, SQL files and packages and so forth, right, this Crystal report is attached to a SQL package, right, that allows us to access the database, right, and the fields that we have at our disposal are here under the database fields. So if I click the plus right here, right, that's a procedure, right, that SP-S8 item summary, that's a procedure. If I open that up, here is all the fields that are available, right, to us in this procedure, right. So in this procedure, right, I have description 2, I have description 3, I have description 4, right. So I could pull those out, put them in my, put them in my detail line, right, or in this case, in my group footer line. And so if it's in my procedure here, I can put it in my Crystal report. Okay, if it's not in my procedure here, I can't put it in my Crystal report, okay, unless I can come up with some kind of formula, right, to read another field and put it in there, right? So, and that's an important distinction. I'll try to show you a simple example of that, okay, but what's key here is if they didn't put the field, the data field, in the procedure, it's pretty hard to get it out into the report. Right now, these packages, right, can be edited with a SQL editor, right? So there are packages that already exist that come with Retail Pro. There are packages that support our custom reports, and all of those have to be loaded on your system in order for these reports to run. So if you are interested in learning using a SQL editor to create your own packages, that's something that, again, we can kind of get you started, right? And most people, if they're going to do that, we're just the off-ramp, right? And then they take it and run with it. Okay, but if you needed something, an element of a piece of data that was not in the package, right? You need a package editor. That's not a Crystal function. That's something beyond that. All right. So in this case, we took this report, right, and we scooted stuff over a little bit. It took like UPC off and so forth, right? And we drug this description 2 in. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the description 2, right? I'm also going to show you why I've got this little grayed out area and things like that, right? So this report, right, there's a detail line, right, and then there's these footers here that represent either organization, like how is it sorted, right, or how is it subtotaled. They're two different things, but they go hand in hand, right? So the native version of this package, right, the detail level is store item, right? And for this, we wanted a consolidated row, right, that shows everything for the item regardless of store. So basically it's a company line. So that's why I have my details, right, are hidden. If I unhide them, you can see. Come on, unhide here. There we go. Okay. So if it's gray like this or white, right, if it's not crosshatched, right, it's going to show on the report. So what we're looking at here is if I printed this now, I'm going to get store for sales, and then this line right here is going to show me my company total. So in this case, I've hidden, okay, my store, right, because I just want to see one line. Okay, that's my company total, right? And so if instead of description 2, I wanted description 3, I would go up here and I'd highlight it, I'd drag it down here, and I'd put it on the line where I want it to display. Doesn't need to be on both lines, okay? But that's why I've got this, why I've got it in the footer line in this particular case. Now, by native, these come in at 10 pitch, and usually we're dealing with formatting these in a smaller, so we get more on the page. But those tools are all existing in here. They're pretty easy to learn how to use. My favorite thing is highlight on the thing that's your source, click this Format Painter, okay, and then see where it turns to a paintbrush on here. I can just drop that format like right on top of that, right? So there's some capability to copy formats to different fields when you edit it. You can select the whole line, right? So if I right click here on the group footer, right, select all section objects, okay, that highlights everything on my line, right? And then I can change the format, right, for everything on my line all at once, okay? And, you know, this is not intended to show you how to do Crystal, but just to give you a flavor for what's possible in here, and try to, you know, give you some kind of gauge to say, oh yeah, I could do that, or no, I'll just have you guys do it. Thanks very much. Okay, so that's what our goal is here, right? Just to show you a few of the tools. Okay, if you are, you know, if you've used Doc Designer in Retail Pro, or if you've used the Page Designer in Retail Pro, a lot of these tools are very similar. Okay, so if you do that and you like that, or, you know, then using Crystal would be pretty easy to get started in. Okay, if you don't use those, or you're totally mystified by them, it might be a little harder, but not out of the question. Crystal is actually a little easier to use than the Page Designer or the Doc Designer, at least in my opinion. Okay. So you can drag fields in here, and then, you know, build your titles, do whatever. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sorting, subtotaling, and that kind of stuff. Okay, and you know, not to spend a huge amount of time on, you know, the nuts and the bolts here, but I wanted to show you that if I run this now, I can preview it, right? So if I hit this preview up here, right, it'll read my database, right? So if you're developing in Crystal, right, on a computer that has the data, right, then you can read the data and have it populate so that you can test your work, right? You can use Crystal someplace where there is no database, you know, in the immediate vicinity, but you can't test your data. So you can develop a Crystal report on a laptop or whatever that doesn't have Retail Pro on it, but in order to test it with data, you have to, you know, be someplace where you got a Retail Pro database. All right, so here, right, I have some stuff with description 3, right, so I can see that. Okay, and the rest of this data, so the light gray bar is my DCS total, the dark gray bar is my D total, right? So if I go back to my design tab, right, so this is my DCS subtotal, this is my department total, so I wanted to show you what would happen, right, if I suppress this line for DCS, right, so if I, or hide, I'm going to hide that. Right, go back to my preview. Okay, now that line disappeared. Okay, so it's still going to be sorted in DCS order within the department, but no subtotals. Okay, so these you know, groups here, right, can function both as a sort, okay, and as a subtotal, your choice, right? If you decide you don't want to see any subtotals, right, that's your prerogative. Still going to sort in DCS and department order because those things are still there. The groups are still there, even if you're not actually displaying the subtotal. All right, so that's one way that you can organize the report to print in the order that you want. Okay. The other thing that you can do is up here in report. Record sort, group sort, we're going to do group sort. In the group sort, right, at each subtotal level, you can have sorts put on this. So if I told this one I wanted to sort the departments, okay, all departments by a certain measurable criteria, i.e. quantity sold, right, or cost, margin, blah, blah, blah. So this is a way of ranking at all of the subtotal levels, ascending or descending. I'll just try the quantity. Let's do the quantity, right? All quantity, descending, okay, right? So that changes the report. I'm going to back reveal my department here so we can see what we're doing. All right, so design. So essentially what should be happening is the department that sold the most should be first, right? So that's the women's department that sold 37 units. If I back down here, so the 200 sold 25 units and this sold 9, right? So this technique you can use to rank at any of the department levels. Essentially, though, you need to pick one, right, to rank at the subtotal level. So you can't do them all, right? But within each department, right, you could rank the individual lines within, right? So you could say, show me my departments in descending order by sales quantity, and then within that department, show me my items also in the top items first, right? So that is a possibility. One way to do it is with these ranking tools, right? So that's just some really simple ways that you could be taught to use Crystal and deal with. I'm going to hide this, do a couple things. I'm not going to save any of these changes I made to this because it still needs to be my Department 2 report. But just a really simple introduction to Crystal itself, okay, and what your possibilities might be. If this is something you're interested in doing, right, then okay, we can give you some training and follow up with you and make sure you're getting what you need. One thing that we do not do is write Crystal reports from scratch. Okay, so there is no reason to get involved with that, right? You can open up any of the reports here that exist in the Retail Pro proper or in our custom directory, make a copy of them and hack them apart to your enjoyment, right? Starting one from scratch is more trouble than it's worth. You find a journal that you like that has the fields in it that you want, suppress the totals, resort it, add spec fields, do whatever you want. Don't try to build it from scratch. All right, so I'm going to exit this. Okay, not save my changes and minimize this. Okay, so that's the introduction to Crystal. The last thing that we talk about in this webinar is scheduling or automating reports. Okay, this is something that existed in older versions. We have a lot more flexibility in version 9 here to actually do this. For the scheduling part, we use the Windows Task Scheduler. We won't go into that because my task scheduler is broken on this computer. But if you need help with that, that's a pretty simple thing, right? We use Windows Task Scheduler in general to control all the automated tasks in Retail Pro, the Retail Pro backup, the tuning, all of those type of things are already in the scheduler. If you need help getting things in the scheduler, then we can certainly work with you to help you with that. The key to automating reports, okay, the first key is that you need a report, right, with the filters already defaulted so that you don't have to change anything, right? So that's thing number one. So we'll go back to our new cashier report. Okay, so I have a new cashier report. It's a copy of a report that I made. It's in the custom directory, okay, and it has certain filters set, right, so that when I run it, okay, it defaults to month to date, right? And if I have anything else in here that I need filled in by default, right, then it has to go in the default filter, right? Because if I have to change anything, I'm not going to be able to feed that into my auto run to run the report. So the report has to be set up so that it's basically a one-button thing, right? You click OK and you run it. All right. So if you have something like that, okay, then you can automate it. All right. So, and this is how you do it. So the key to this is we have these batch files. Oh, look, my Acrobat finally woke up. So we have these batch files, and we can give you the starter set for these batch files. There's no secret to how they're named or anything. We happen to use a convention that says, you know, V9 reports daily.bat. Those are reports I want to run daily, and then we have a batch file for V8 reports monthly.bat. But you know, you run them at whatever frequency you set in your task scheduler, so it doesn't really matter what they're called. Okay. They have an important element here, right? This task kill that's right here. If I'm running, if I leave my reports viewer open, this batch file has to kill it in order to open it and run it with an automated report. So this is a very important element of your batch file. Got to have that, right? Or if somebody leaves reports open and goes home for the day and your auto run takes off, it's not going to be able to run because it's not going to be able to take over that report session that already exists. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, and then the next command that you see in here is a string, right, that runs the Retail Pro Reports executable username, password. Okay, and if you've been around any kind of automated processes with us, we know that we don't like to use the sysadmin password because people, you know, learn it and then they change it, and now my auto reports won't run. So we encourage you to set up a Retail Pro user, right? That has, you know, the rights to run reports and maybe nothing else, or maybe the rights to do automated tasks. Call it, call it auto, call it reports, call it whatever you want. Okay, but it should be, you know, just used for this auto run purpose, and then nobody uses it to log in. The password never gets changed, and you're a happy camper, right? So my example has sysadmin. I'm going to leave it because I don't know what I actually have set up here. Okay, but so username and password that are valid in Retail Pro. Okay, and then what report am I running? So this string says RPT, double quote, and this is the actual name of the report. Okay, and when you go into report viewer, so this information right here. So what I teach people to do is find the report you want after you've set up the filters, click the edit button, and then Windows copy this, right? So you have exactly the same string, right? So Windows copy this right here, okay, and replace everything within the double quotes, just like that. Okay, so that way you're sure that it's named exactly the way. You don't have an extra space, you don't have a typo, blah, 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 right? So that's just a smart thing to do. You have to tell the system what directory to find this in. Okay, and in this case, this one's in the custom directory. Okay, this setting right here tells us how to output it, right? So our choices are Excel, right? And I always do Excel text because I'm assuming that somebody's going to, you know, open this up with Excel and want to do something with the data. The options are PDF, right? So you can automatically have it create a PDF, and what it's going to do is it's going to put it down in this directory. That's what this means. So put it down in my V9 reports directory, okay? And this is a silent switch, right? So if we execute this now, it's going to run that report, right? Make an Excel file and stick it in the reports directory, right? So we are actually going to run that. I'm going to comment this one out because I'm not sure what that's actually going to do if I try to run it. Oops. Yeah, fine. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So we're going to do file, save this, right? This batch file now could be run from your task scheduler. So you run from the, just from the Windows Explorer. When you build these, it's smart, right, to run them from the batch file by itself. First, it happens to be in the Retail Pro 9 directory. No rocket science about where to put it, except that you do want it someplace where it's excluded from your antivirus. So it's accepted from your antivirus. So we, by default, put them into Retail Pro 9 because generally we're telling all of our antivirus things, don't scan anything in Retail Pro 9. So the antivirus won't accidentally eat your batch file. Okay. So the executables in here, the batch files in here. If we run the batch file, okay, it should kill my Retail Pro reports that are running already. It should run the report, right, and it should plunk it down, okay, in the V9 reports directory, okay, as an Excel. Okay, so we're going to watch it do that. Well, okay, so I got something going on in my batch file. So hang on a second here. I leave a space out, probably did. Actually, yeah, I'll let the space out right here, right? Okay. So this is why you test this out in the batch here, so you can see that it's actually running and actually completing. There we go. All right, so if you run this from the task scheduler, you won't get that big, gray pop-up thing. But essentially, this ran. It put what we want down here in the reports directory. So here is a copy of the report that we just auto-ran. Right, it's got a date stamp on it. Okay, so 9/19/2018. Right, and then like a millisecond thing here. The file name is actually the report. The RPT name, right? So I know a lot of you, look at this gobbledygook and go, okay, so when I register a report, I want the name to look like English, right? So if you wanted this to be, say, cashier performance report, right, then the RPT has to be named cashier performance report in order for the auto run to come out that way. Okay, so in the batch file, right, we call it by whatever the name is. Okay, but the output, okay, is the RPT name with a timestamp on the front. Okay, this is an Excel file. We can open it up. Also, I have a PDF sitting in here from the iterations past, and for whatever reason, my PDFer seems to be broken. Okay, but those are the two general versions that we do output these reports at. Right, so if you need these generally available for anybody, then you put them in a directory that's a shared directory so people can get them. We do have an auto email facility that we can make available to you. It's something that we found that we bought a license for that we can proliferate out, right? And essentially, you can run these reports on a timed basis. And we can set up an auto email string to email them to a list of people automatically, okay? Or you can let them sit on the desktop and people can come print them or view them or put them into Excel at their leisure. All right, so the reason for the timestamp is I can run this thing over and over and over again, right, and get multiple iterations, right, of the report, and it doesn't clobber the old one, right? So if I run this over and over again, this was something that was harder to do, right, in older versions of Retail Pro, but this time I can run this report over and over and over again, and I'll get a new one every time. Okay, so if you have this run, daily reports, over and over and over again, and you're letting them sit on the disk instead of doing something with them, you'll still have all your versions of your daily reports. Okay, so I just want to make that clear because that is something that, right, so here's your cashier performance reports, right? and every time I run it, I get a different version. I must have run this one like in the same minute or something. I didn't get another one. 431. No. All right. I didn't click something right. All right. So these, this is the best way to run a group and or automate. If you just want to run a group, right, then you can build oops, sorry, that's not what we want. We go here, and so let's say that you have a buyer comes in on Monday morning and she has a list of reports that she wants to run on Monday morning, but she doesn't want them auto run. She wants to check with somebody and make sure they got all their POs in or whatever, right? And so if you want this type of thing to be run on demand, okay, then what you're looking at is have a batch file with the reports created in them. As long as you can create a version of that report with default filters, okay, then you can create a batch file. Right, you can create a batch file, so we can say copy this, paste, okay, and then rename this Buyer Monday reports. Right, so if you have people that prefer, right, to do it this way, then all you're going to do is create them a file, right, shortcut that out someplace where they can get to it. Okay, so should have Buyer Monthly Reports laying out here somewhere. Yeah, I know it's here. Way too many. There it goes. Buyer Monday Reports right here, and the you can make multiple. Let's see. Edit. Right. So you can put a list of reports in here. So Control C. Right. Right. So line. Right. Especially if you're running this on demand. Right. You don't need to worry about putting a timer in it or anything like that. There are some issues sometimes with running these, and if there's no records, sometimes they will hang when they're running automatically. That's something we can deal with if you run into that problem. But let me start up and grab a couple more names just to show you in practice how to build this file. All right, so if we go here and to custom, and we say we want this report, right, running every Monday morning. So Control C, the file, replace the name here. All right, okay. And then let's see, we want on and by item, let's say, right? Say no, right? So edit. Okay, so edit this, right? Grab the title with Control C. Okay, come in here. Okay, and run this. Okay, and the other thing, we'll change these to, I am not sure because my PDFer is broken what this might do, but we're going to find out. Okay, PDF. All right, so file, save, all right, close. All right, so cancel out of this, yes. All right, so I have this open, right? So when I run the Buyer Monthly Reports, whether I run it from here or run it from the desktop, let's run it from the desktop. It'll be more fun. All right, so we're going to run this from the desktop. It's going to kill. Yeah, so this is probably going to get in my way because my PDFer is not really happy, but we'll see what happens. Okay. So it's running, not really sure it's actually creating a file, but if you have a healthy PDFer, it would create a file. So let's just look here. Dun, dun, dun. But it's runs 3 reports in order. Oh, on-hand by item. That's a nice long one. Okay, so let's go here and see if we're putting anything in V9 reports. Yeah, so it is actually creating my PDFs. I can't open them and show it to them, but that's what it's doing. All right, there's a cashier performance report. This one, and it's still working on this one because it's a, oops, no print window. Okay, close, close. Okay, so I wish I could show you those, but I can't. So that's, you know, automating reports. Obviously, there's a lot more to this subject than we can present in an hour and a half or whatever time we have it for a webinar. And we, you know, are intending that this is just an introduction to what you can do, not necessarily a how-to, but just to try to reinforce the knowledge you already have, right? Or open your, you know, eyes up to the possibilities of dealing with some of these reports yourself, or just finding out what's available, right? So that was the goal for this report. We hope you know, found that useful. You know that you can always reach a tech or trainer here with email or calling and scheduling an appointment with service, right? And we do have a sample book of our custom reports, and if you're interested in seeing that, you know, call or email into service, and we can make arrangements to get that sent to you. Or if you have, you know, any needs as far as Learning Crystal or questions that came up with this that you need follow-up on, please let us know. 800-377-7776. And also the tech support number 916-368-1070, right? So as always, thanks for your attention, right? I hope some of you are still awake. You will get an email linking you back to this. And again, right, if you want further information, there are other webinars that cover the same subject. Different people cover it different ways, get a little deeper. So please take the time to look at those if you're interested at all. And thank you for your attention.